As we approach the end of this series on how to use SPSS, I want to demonstrate how a professional statistician uses SPSS in the real world, or at least in the academic world. I'm going to show you exactly how I organize SPSS for research. Let's learn about the ideal workflow using IBM SPSS statistics. When I consult with academic researchers, graduate students, or undergraduate students, I want to help them understand their data. And one of the best ways to manage data is to have a plan for what you will do with your findings. For this example, I'm going to begin with raw data in Excel and walk you through a workflow that will organize your output and make your research replicable. By now, you're already a bit of a pro at SPSS, so I'm going to work a little more quickly, using the same skills that I taught you in previous videos, but letting you see the workflow in something closer to real time. If you want to review any details on the techniques that I demonstrate, you can always review them in the previous videos from this series. If you want to follow along, you can find this Excel file in a Google Drive folder. The link is in the description for this video. You want dogtoys.xlsx. So the most common way that I would receive data was as an Excel spreadsheet. Everybody owns a copy of Excel, and many people use it for data collection. If your data are in the Excel format, just make sure that the variables are in columns and that each column has a header that will serve as the variable name. Now, ideally, the names are short and they don't have spaces, and your data must begin on the second row. If you downloaded data from an online survey software like Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey, create a duplicate second sheet in your raw data file, and then do your data cleaning on the first sheet so that you maintain a copy of the original data. You must delete the second row. Now, before I import data from Excel, I will close this data set in Excel. And note that the data are on the desktop of my computer. And now I can open SPSS. When SPSS opens, I will close the initial splash page, and then I will go to File, Open, Data. I will look on the desktop for the Excel file, click on it, and then Open. Now these default settings are good, except I want to remove any leading or trailing spaces. Click OK. Now I can do some data cleaning in SPSS. I begin by setting the levels of measurement. Both of the ratio level variables, number of toys owned and days to failure of the toys, need to be set to scale. Next, I want to fix these string variables that came in as words. Before I do this next step, however, I'm going to add a number 1 after each of the existing names of the string variables. Go to Transform, Automatic Recode. Move all of the string variables into the box on the right. And then, one by one, rename them. Now you can see why I added that number 1 to each of the string variable names. To be safe, I will select Treat blank string values as user missing, even though I know that I do not have any missing values in this particular data set. Click OK. Now I go back to Variable View and just delete the string variables that I recoded. Each of these remaining variables are nominal level, except for dog size, which is ordinal. click over to Data View. I do have one missing data point, but I was able to look at the original survey and discover that this value should have been a 3. I want every participant in this study to have a unique identifier. To add one, go to Transform, Compute Variable. I will name my new variable dog, and as a label, I will call it Unique Identification Number. Click Continue. Next, click on the function group All, and the first available function will be case number. Drag it to the numeric expressions box and add a +100 so that the identifiers will begin at 101. Click OK. Back in Variable View, I can drag this new variable to the top of the variable list. The last thing that remains is to add some descriptive value labels. And then save this data set to the desktop as dog toys, where it will be saved in the SPSS format. Once my variables are set, I want to explore them with some descriptive statistics. For each scale variable, I want the mean, the standard deviation, and for each categorical variable, I want counts and percentages. And I want to save the syntax for both. Go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Descriptives. Move over the 2 scale variables and click Options. I need only the mean and the standard deviation. Click Continue and Paste to create a new syntax window. Now go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Frequencies. Move over all of the categorical variables. Select Create APA-style tables and click Paste. Let's check the output so far. Select the code in the syntax window and then the green triangle. Yeah, that looks right. Good. Save the syntax to the desktop as dog toys syntax. And now we can test some hypotheses. Research questions should guide your research project. Therefore, you should know what research questions you want to test early in the project. Don't rush to collect data and then think, I'll figure out what to do with it later. Or even worse, I'll let my statistician figure out what I should have done with it. In fact, I require my grad students to write out each research question, the specific variables that they will use, and the test that they will use before they begin data collection. That way you are sure that you will collect data on every variable that you need. You will spot potential problems while you still have time to fix them. And it also speeds up the analysis later on, allowing you to write the last 2 chapters of your dissertation very quickly. My 3 research questions are, number 1, does days to failure differ by dog breed? Do certain breeds of dogs chew up their toys quicker? 2, is favorite dog toy related to the size of the dog? It may be. And C, is number of dog toys owned related to days to failure of the toy? do dogs with lots of toys chew up their toys faster or slower than dogs with fewer toys? First research question. Does days to failure differ by dog breed? Days to failure is a scale-level dependent variable. Because there are 3 breeds of dogs, this will be a one-way ANOVA. Go to Analyze, Compare Means, One-way ANOVA. My scale variable, days to failure, a measure of how quickly the dog toy gets chewed up, goes into the dependent list. The factor is dog breed. Because there are 3 dog breeds, I want to do a 2-key post hoc test. For options, I want descriptives and a homogeneity test. Continue. I'm pretty sure that I want effect sizes. Let me check. Click OK. Yes, the effect sizes are what I wanted. Great. Use the Recall Recently Used Dialogues icon to pull up the one-way ANOVA settings again. All of the settings are exactly the same as they were, so click Paste. Because the syntax file is still active, new syntax will be added below the existing syntax. Second research question. Is favorite toy related to size of the dog? Both of these are categorical variables, so I will use a chi-square. Go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Crosstabs. I want the size of dog to go in the columns and favorite toy in the rows. For statistics, select chi-square as the hypothesis test and phi and Kramer's V, which is a measure of effect size. Continue. In the cells, select row percentages. Continue. Select the option to display clustered bar charts and paste. Third research question. Is number of toys owned related to days to failure of the toy? Because I'm looking for the relationship between 2 scale variables, I'm going to use a correlation. Go to Analyze, Correlate, Bivariate. Move the 2 scale variables into the variables box and click Paste. I now have all of the syntax that I will use for my research project. Before I run it, however, I want to annotate my syntax. Specifically, I want to include my research questions as a note before each analysis. Trust me, you will thank me for this later. Annotations in SPSS begin with an asterisk and end with a period. You must include the period even when you have other punctuation, such as a question mark in your research question. You know that it is right when the text turns gray. Once you have added your research question, save the syntax file. I am now ready to run my analysis. Before I do, though, I want a fresh viewer that will contain my output and only my output, nothing else. Close the current viewer without saving. Select all of the syntax and then click the green triangle to run it. I get a fresh viewer with all of my output. If this was my first time seeing these results, I would spend some time reviewing them, discovering how they turned out. I'm going to skip that part for this example about workflow. At this point, I would clean up the tables using table looks and convert them to Times New Roman 12-point font for APA style. I would also format any graphs that I wanted to use in my research report or my write-up. And when I was done, I would export the output to a Word document, just the visible output, so that you can view it more easily or share it with someone who does not have SPSS on their computer. Save the output file to the desktop as dog toys output. Then I would open the Word doc, which is an RTF file, and save it to the desktop as a Word document, which uses the suffix docx. Once that document was saved, I would throw away the RTF. Now that my analysis is finished, there is still one more thing to do, and that is to create a codebook for my data. Go to Analyze, Reports, Codebook. Move all variables except the random identifier into the variables box. For the output, select only the label, measurement level, value labels, and missing values for the variables. For file information, choose file name, location, and the number of cases. And for statistics, deselect quartiles. Paste to syntax. And now, save the syntax file one more time and close it. Pull up the codebook again using recently used dialog icon and click OK. I would export this codebook to Excel, do some cleaning, and when it is finished, I would close the viewer without saving. We're now finished with SPSS, so close the dataset. Now back in Excel, I would delete the top 7 rows of the codebook, and then I would resize the columns as desired. You can double-click between columns to resize. You can leave the codebook in Excel or copy and paste it into a Word document if you prefer. The last step is to create a new folder on your desktop. Name the folder with your name and a description of the research topic. I like including the name, especially when I consult, but you could just use the topic if you prefer, and it's all of your data. Now put all of the files currently on your desktop into this folder. In the folder, you now have your raw data, an SPSS dataset that has been fully cleaned, the syntax and the output, and the codebook of your variables. This Word doc contains your output in a format that can be easily shared with colleagues or that can be readily used for your write-up. Let's review what you have learned in this entire series. You have gone from opening and exploring the SPSS workspace, perhaps for the first time, to importing data into SPSS, creating descriptive statistics for your categorical and your scale variables, recoding, creating new variables, doing data cleaning, pasting syntax, cleaning the output, and now establishing a workflow that will simplify your research project, keep you on track, and out of overwhelm. If you want to get certified with basic SPSS, you can probably do it with what you've learned here. And you can be proud of your new skill set. Put it on your Vita. Tell others that you are a skilled user of SPSS. And maybe tell them where you learned it. They might want to watch these videos too. If you're a student, please tell your colleagues, your classmates, maybe even your teacher. And if you teach statistics, please feel free to link to this video series for use in your class. My purpose in creating these videos is to improve the field of statistics and research. So whatever you do to promote that, you have my blessing. Thanks for watching and for subscribing. Please check out these other videos on the channel, and I will see you in stats class.